Hi, welcome to this tutorial on accommodation. These features only apply to Hotel Manager. In this tutorial, we'll take a look at managing rooms and halls, creating reservations, checking in guests, checking out guests, scheduling events, managing invoice extras and discounts, reviewing reports related to accommodation. Let's get started. To use accommodation related features, head over to the Accommodation tab. Once here, you will note that at a glance, the accommodation homepage shows the number of available rooms, the room reservations pending, the number of occupied rooms, the list of currently ongoing events, and the list of upcoming scheduled events. The first step in setting up accommodation is to manage the facilities. So to manage facilities, head over to Manage Facilities. Once here, you will be able to create event halls and guest rooms. So for starters, we'll create an event hall. So to create an event hall, you click on the Add Event Hall. The information that you enter about the hall is the hall name or number, the capacity, the description, and the rate or cost. So for instance, we'll enter the details such as hall 10. It's got a capacity of 500. It is air conditioned, has an overhead projector, and the base cost without any extras is, for argument's sake, 3,000 kwacha. Okay, so we'll then proceed to click Add Hall, and that saves the event hall. So once our event halls are saved, and at any point we need to, for instance, make an amendment, we can then select the hall that needs amending. So for instance, we can edit special hall, click the modify link, amend, for instance, the capacity to 600, and then click Update Hall. That is how we amend an event hall. The next thing we'll do is we'll create a guest room. So to add a guest room, under the Manage Facilities section, you click on the Add Guest button. On this guest room, we can enter the room number. So for instance, this one will have room number 10. We will then choose a type. So the base types that are currently there it could be a single, a double, a suite, or any other. So for instance, this one will be a single. It has one bed. A description, for instance, has DSTV, is air conditioned, and any other description you'd like to add. So the idea behind the booking rates is if, for instance, there are different rates based on the number of occupants in a room, this is where it can be configured. So you could presently configure up to 3 different booking rates. So this one, the base price, for instance, could be 400 for a single occupant. If, for instance, there are 2 people in there, it's 450, and so on and so forth. So once all this information is set up, we then click Add Room, and that saves the guest room. So the guest room that we just added is over there. If at some point you need to update a guest room, you could just select it. So for instance, let's update room number 3, click on the modify link, and over here we would like to change it from a single to a double. And then for the number of beds, we indicate 2, and we can update the room. That makes the changes to the room. Once your facilities are set up, you're now ready to start taking reservations. So to reserve a room, you head over to Room Reservations. Under the Room Reservation section, there are primarily 2 types of reservations that can be done. You could reserve for individual guests, which means that the occupants only need 1 room, or you could reserve for a group. So a group would then require multiple rooms. So let's get started first with the individual guest. So if an individual comes through and they would like to make a reservation for the future, you could then select the room that they're interested in. So for instance, this person is interested in room 1. Then the next thing is you indicate the names of the person. So for instance, this is a Banda who is interested in that room, and then the date on which they're interested in coming through is, for instance, the 15th. Then you indicate the duration of their stay, which could be 3 days. Then if they are going to issue any deposit in advance, you could indicate that amount there. So if they deposit an initial 500 kwacha, that goes there. So The next step is we then indicate the number of guests. So if they have multiple guests and this room is configured to have multiple rates, you could then see a difference. So for instance, the base price for this room is 500 kwacha. So if there is one guest, it's 500 kwacha. If for instance there are two guests on the other hand, it becomes 550. So whatever number of guests that they need in this particular room, you then set it up there, and then the price would change based on the number of guests that's been set up. So in this case, say Banda is two guests, their phone number is 09 that, an email address if they have one, and then any other extra information. So for instance, if they need any specific requirement, you could then add it there. So once the information that you need from them is set up, you just click add reservation. That then adds the room reservation, and the reservation can now be viewed on the home page. So if we head over to the home page, the number of available room reservations has incremented by 1. So we click there, and we then have the Banda reservation that is expected on the 15th. We head over back to room reservations to then set up a group reservation. So if a group reservation comes through, we could, for instance, have a company that needs multiple rooms. So we can just enter the company name, the contact number for whoever is coming through, an email address, the date that we expect them. So they could be coming on the 15th as well, and they would like to stay for 5 days. And then if they set up a deposit, we avail them with that as well. Then under the number of rooms, you can then select the room that they're interested in. So you will note that room 1 is what the band has just reserved. So it is not available on this particular date. So that ensures that you don't have any reservation conflicts. So you can then use any of the other available rooms. So in this room, if we say, okay, how many guests would like to be in this room? We've got 2. Okay, so that is the rate based on the 2 guests. In room 2, we'll have 1 guest. And in room 3, we could also have 1 guest. So the room 1 is unavailable because it's already been taken up. So once you have that, you have the total number of guests coming to 4. You click proceed, and then this summarizes all that information, and then you can then finalize the reservation by clicking reserve rooms. So that saves our group reservation. So if we look at our homepage again, our room reservations have incremented. We select that there, and we'll notice that company name with 4 guests is expected on this date and will be around for 5 days. To update a reservation, you head over to the room reservation section, then you scroll down to the bottom and locate the pending reservations. So for instance, if we would like to update the individual reservation for Banda, we can click on the modify link, and then that brings up the information related to this reservation. Then based on this, we can make the necessary changes and then proceed to update our reservation. So for instance, if they get in touch with us and let us know that no, would actually like to change the start date, so we change the start date to the 14th, and then the duration of the stay, which was initially 3 days, can then be amended to, for instance, 2, and then the number of guests would maintain the 1, and then would update the reservation. So even that process would make sure that this new updated reservation does not conflict with any other pending reservation. So updating a group reservation is quite similar. So you'd identify the group you'd like to update for, select that reservation. So for these guys, we would like to remove 1 room, bringing the total number of guests to 3. The expected date, for instance, becomes the 16th. They'll only be around for 2 days as well. Then would set this to that. So this 2 people here, 1 person. We have the 3 there. Then proceed, and then that reserves our rooms as well. So to check in a guest, we can check them in from either a reservation or directly. So we'll start off by checking in a guest from a reservation. So we click on the check-in based on reservation, and then under this list, we locate the reservation that we'd like to check in. So in this case, we'd like to check in room 1 for a Banda. But you will note that even though the expected date is in the future, if the room is currently available, then this can be checked into. So we'll then head over to check-in, and then the reservation was that, so please set a new duration. So this is mandatory to ensure that whatever new duration you set up does not conflict with any other pending reservations. So we'll then say that, okay, we'd like to stay for 2 days. If it validates that this is still fine, you would then be able to proceed with the check-in. So whatever other information that you'd like to update at this point, you'd then be able to update, and then you'd say check in the guest. So once the guest has been checked in, the number of occupied rooms changes, and then if you click on it, you will then see that the banders have just checked in today and will be expected to leave on such a date based on the days requested to stay. So to check in directly, you click on check in and then identify the room that you would like to check in. So currently occupied rooms are not listed here available for check-in. So for check-in as well, you have the ability to check in either an individual or a group. So to check in an individual, you select a room that is of interest. So in case they would like to check into this one, you click on the check-in, you indicate the name. So the name for this one could be a Zulu. The number of guests is 2. The duration of their stay is just 1 night. You indicate a phone number for them, email, and whatever other information you would like to save. And then once all that is set up, you just proceed to check in the guest. So that also increments the number of occupied rooms. You click on that, you then be able to see that Zulu has also checked in. And considering that for them it's only 1 day, you would then note that it will end on the 14th. If during their stay some of your guests order some things from the restaurant, you could charge these items to the room. So for instance, under the point of sale, during a sale, so let's say under the drinks, you have 3 drinks, then these drinks are charged to the room. So for instance, the currently occupied people are Zulu and Banda. So if Zulu got these drinks and then you click finish, what will then happen is at the point of checking out, these items will then be available on the client's invoice. So say one of our guests is ready to check out, so you head over to checkout, you select the guest who's about to check out. So for instance, in this case, Zulu is about to check out. When you click checkout, it will give you a summary of the outcomes. Then if you need to, for instance, offer a discount at this point, you can do that. And then you note that the show invoice checkbox is selected, then that will automatically show up our invoice. So in this case, our total bill is that, and then we proceed to check out the guest. Then that will display the invoice for this particular guest. So over here, we'll notice that we have that invoice. So we'll notice that this is now Mr. Zulu's invoice. So Mr. Zulu's invoice shows his date of arrival, departure date, number of persons, the duration, and then the breakdown of how they incurred this bill. So those items that were charged to the room are also displayed on this particular invoice. If need be, you could charge items to the room and then generate another invoice which does not particularly show them. So we head back there, and then we now have our values for available rooms, reservations, and occupied rooms changing based on the checkout that has just occurred. So to schedule an event, we head over to events, select the hall that we're interested in. So for instance, right now we would like to use the special hall. Then we'd indicate the name of the organizer. So if Zulu is organizing an event, they give us their phone number, their contact address, and then they also state the time and date for which they would like to use it. So you notice that for events, you have a more granular approach, which means that you can even enter the start and the end times. So here we would say this to that. Okay, so at 7 hours on the 14th, and on the 14th itself, this event will run till noon. The number of expected participants is, for instance, 200 people. So we can estimate a cost for them based on what they tell us that they require. So we'll then say that this one will cost them a 4,000 kwacha. So if they deposit any amount, that can be entered there. If they've got any special requirements, you indicate them there, and then you proceed to add the room reservation. If you'd like to cancel an event, on the homepage at the bottom of upcoming events, you then select the organizer's name to view more information, and then click the cancel event. And then this would ask you to confirm if you're actually proceeding to cancel this event. So if you're proceeding to cancel this event, you can just click confirm, and that cancels the event. Okay, so we'll recreate that same event for other purposes. So say Zulu did that. Start date is the 14th at 7, the 14th till noon, with 200 participants with a cost estimate of 4,000. We then proceed to have that event. So if you'd like to update an event's details, you select the organizer, modify event, update whatever information you would like to update about this individual. So Zulu at email.net. Then we update the event. We're done. Then once everything is finalized about an event and it's confirmed that the organizer will not be rolling back or postponing the event and things like that, you can proceed to confirm it, because once the event is confirmed, it cannot be cancelled. So what you then do is you proceed to click on confirm event underneath the event section, or on the home page you'd select the name of the organizer and then click confirm event. So confirm event. So it will prompt you that you're now confirming this event. You proceed to confirm it. And once that is done, the event now moves to the list of confirmed events. So on the home page, under upcoming events, you click on it, you no longer have the cancel button. So now you can even look at a provisional invoice, which is now available here. So on the provisional invoice, you select that. It will generate your invoice, which in this case will look something like this for the particular event. So during the course of a stay of an event, if the guests wind up using extra services, you could add these as surcharges to the invoice. So under accommodation, you come to surcharges and extras, and then you would then be able to either add surcharges to a currently checked-in guest, or find a guest based on a particular period, or locate a particular event. So for instance, if this guest would like to, for instance, add a surcharge, we could then say, give us the guest who stayed in that period. So we'll locate Zulu again, would add a surcharge. So if Zulu on a particular date incurred a laundry service, would then indicate the amount as 100 kwacha, for instance, and then add that surcharge. So to confirm the surcharge that we just added, we can head over to the home of the accommodation, and then under invoices, we select the date range in which Zulu was our guest. So once we find the entry for Zulu, we can then click the report icon to view his invoice. Then when his invoice renders, we'll then select it, and would note that in addition to the things that we charged to him under the point of sale, we also have the laundry charge there. So that also increments the total due, and so on and so forth. If a client has made a deposit towards either an event or a room stay, you can adjust the deposit either at the point of checking in the client or afterwards. So for instance, to manage a deposit, you click on manage deposits, and then you locate the stay in which the deposit was made. So for instance, Mr. Zulu made a deposit. So currently the deposit is at 0. So to change the deposit and then enter and say that, okay, he had initially paid off at 200 kwacha. So it would change the deposit, and then that would effectively mean that the value that he owed at the point of checking out would then be less the 200 kwacha that he had initially deposited. So discounts can also be offered. So to offer a discount, on the home page of the accommodation tab, you click on the manage discounts button, then locate stay again. So in this case, we'd say it's stay during that duration. So in Mr. Zulu's case again, discount is currently 0. We can change his discount value and say, okay, we offer him a 74 kwacha discount. Change the discount. That would then mean that his value would then be less than 74 kwacha. So we can confirm that looking at the invoice. So would locate Mr. Zulu's stay, run his invoice, and then his invoice would then have all these changes. So on his invoice, you will note that he had the initial deposit of 200 kwacha, a discounted amount of 200 of that. then the total that was due at the point of him checking out would then be 300 kwacha, factoring in all these changes. So to view reports related to guest stays, you would head over to the rooms button over here, and then you can either choose to see the list of failed reservations. So failed reservations are reservations made but never really checked in by that client, and then or you can view guests by period. So currently on the landing page of this section, you will note that you will see rooms that are currently occupied. So every guest who's currently checked in, you would then see, and then you'd also be able to see a summary of the current bill that they've racked up. So to see the full list of guests by a period, you click there, select the duration of interest, and then you would note the guests who had checked in at that time. So the room numbers, guest names, and everything. So for all those who are still checked in, you would not check in at the checkout date. So you'd also see the values that are racked up by each individual. So to view room invoices, you'd head over to the home page, look at the invoices, and then you would then have the ability to look at invoices related to the either individual or group guests. So as usual, you give the date range, and then these are the generatable invoices. So wherever you have the invoice icon, you can then just proceed to click on it and render the invoice for that individual. So Zulu, as we've been doing, you now note that his invoice has been generated, and that's the invoice that we can issue to Mr. Zulu. So for event invoices or event reports, something similar, head over to events, then you note that there is a currently running or an upcoming event, but you can just proceed to say confirmed events, you give a date range of that nature, and then generate a report to show us that, okay, there's one event that was during this time period. You select the invoice icon, view the invoice, and you then have the invoice for that particular event. If you would like to search the room or event history, on the home page, you locate the search room or event history button, click on it, and then in the room history or the event history, you can either enter a full or partial name. So we'll find all instances with the letter A in it, click search, and then all of them will be brought up and we'll be able to see what transpired for rooms. So we head over back, search rooms events, so we can do the same thing for the events, say A again. So all the events that were held or scheduled are then brought up like that. Thank you for watching our tutorial. For more information and the reference manual, please visit our website, and then you'll find all the relevant documentation there. Thank you. See you next time.